This episode of the Residential Tech Talks podcast is brought to you by SVS. Let's get real for a minute. Sound is what connects us to the physical and emotional experience of our favorite music, movies, and shows. It's bass you can feel, breathtaking vocals, and sonic realism that transports you. If you're ready to get serious about your home audio, you need to check out SVS. Whether it's your endgame home theater or your first legit stereo, SVS has a solution and unrivaled support to help you every step of the way. Learn more at svsound.com.
Residential Tech Talk, lighting specialist, residential tech.
All right, we are back on the Residential Tech Talks podcast and excited today to jump into it. My first official interview with Avi Rosenthal. You get the privilege and the pleasure of being my first official Residential Tech Talks interview, Avi. I appreciate you guinea pigging me alongside with me.
It's an incredible
Is this fun?
honor. I expect 30 years from now when you retire that they'll look back and I'll be part of that sizzle reel. So I'm cool with this.
No, that's awesome. Well, like I said, I appreciate it. The board chair for the Z-Wave Alliance, but I know that just explains a sliver of what you do. So I want to give you the chance. Set us up here. Tell us about yourself, your background, and what brought you to where you are today.
Well, it all started in a small. No. Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks so much, Rob, for having me on. Yes, I am the chairman of the board of the Z-Wave Alliance. I'm also the chair of the Trade Policy Working Group for the Consumer Technology Association. So we're involved in all of the trade policies for the United States with lots of other countries around the world. As you'd imagine, that's a pretty focused one these days. And then those are both volunteer positions. My day job is I'm actually the managing partner for a group called Blue Connect Partners. And Blue Connect, we're a consulting firm, and we help companies design and develop product, bring them into the market, both big companies sort of entering new markets and little companies entering markets for the first time. So we do a lot of sourcing and marketing and things like that. But it's a really fun group. We're 17 industry professionals, been around for each of us have been in the industry 20 plus years. So we are industry veterans. But my background, 30 seconds. So I started off as an integrator. So I understand sort of what it's like to be on the other side of the desk, buy the product, install the product, deal with the customers, integrate things. And then a few years back, went to work for manufacturers to help design and develop product and market them. Had a lot of fun doing that. Did a stint in the hospitality industry, but mostly residential home and control. And then about 6 years ago, I guess it's more than that now, 7 years ago, became a consultant completely by accident. One of the last gig I had finished up and the phone rang and somebody said, "Hey, can you help me with this project?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And the next thing I knew, I was a consultant. And that's literally how it happened. So it's great.
Stay connected to the things that you were doing and love doing, I'm sure. I always love asking this too, especially for integrators, currently or former. What got you into that? Because everyone has a different origin story, right?
That's a great story. So I was a geek, right? I was a computer guy. I come from the IT industry, which is actually a little bit different. Most integrators, come from an AV or maybe, car audio or something like that. And they started with home theater. I came to it from the IT side. So I worked in IT for many years before I became an integrator. And then my wife and I built a house. We built our very first house back in the early mid-90s. And I wanted it to be smart, right? I wanted it for whatever classified for smart back then, right? Believe it or not, it was X10 light switches. But I had the very first structured wired home in Palm Beach County, Florida.
Wow.
There was a little company out of Utah called Future Smart. I got on what was then the World Wide Web, right? And I found this little company and they shipped me this huge spool of cable. And I paid Centex Homes, which this exorbitant amount of money to drop 9 drops of structured wire in the house. It was 2 Cat5, 2 RG6, and 2 glass multi-mode fiber, right? Because what did we know, right?
Yeah.
We put the fiber in, future proofing. Went through this entire process of sort of designing and developing what I thought would be cool. Found a couple of companies online that could help me do it. And they realized there must be a business here. I can't be the only guy who's really interested in smart home. And so I partnered with somebody who had a low voltage license in Florida. We started a company called HomeWorks Automation. Just to show you how naive we were, we had never even heard of Lutron Homeworks. We had no idea that that was even a thing, right? I had hired a guy to figure out the name for me, and we were Homeworks.
Wow.
It was only many years later we found out, oh,
oops, great minds.
Right, exactly. But believe it or not, Homeworks Automation to this day is still in business.
Yeah.
I sold to my partners in the early 2000s, and it's still around. They still do. They do mostly commercial and fire after the Great Recession of 2008. They pivoted a little bit, but it's still a going concern. We were doing 5,000 homes a year. We were big time. We had 3 offices: Boca, Orlando, and Tallahassee. I learned an incredible amount. I mean, I had never worked a construction site in my life. So learn the whole thing sort of trial by error. What did it take to do this? What did it take? How did you pull a permit? What happens if you got red flag? The whole thing. And we did some really cool projects. And then that's sort of how I got started. And then, as most people know, Julie Jacobson discovered me. Julie Jacobson was a reporter, a journalist for the industry for many, many years. And she found me and dragged me out of obscurity, put me on the cover of her magazine with my partner, and the rest is history.
That's awesome.
It is. I'm very lucky. I turned a hobby into a career.
Yep. And
to this day, I'd rather spend the weekend playing with gadgets and rewiring something than I would, on a golf course or a tennis court. So
that's too cool. The home, to your point about the homes, right? Probably building like GED level homes compared to like the doctorate degrees that are out there now in terms of smart. Was that kind of where we're at?
Well, to a certain extent, but then there was my very first integration was a great company out of Boston called CyberHouse. And CyberHouse was it was a software guy that worked for Lotus 123. I'm really dating myself now, right? 100,000.
I'll stop asking questions, but this is
it. So anyway, Dave had written this really cool piece of software that ran on a PC and through multiple serial connections, RS-232 connections, could control a whole bunch of things in your house. And so it was a Windows-based home controller, which was back in the day, it was Windows 95, believe it or not. It's hard to imagine it's 30 years ago, but that was my first integration. And that took different kind of smarts than I think what people deal with today. Today, it's the software world has matured so incredibly much. And it's so much easier in some respects, but also much more complex because there are many more options. Yep. Back then, man, I wanted a serial controlled thermostat. There were like 2 in the entire world. That was it. That was all I could choose from. Now you've got, wireless, you've got Wi-Fi, Z-Wave, Zigbee, Bluetooth, and then you've got all the wired connections and all the back office systems and all the various programming languages. So, integrators today have to really understand how this stuff all goes together. And the chance of weird things happening in the world, strange interferences. Back then, everything was wired, right? I don't have to worry about wireless. We barely had Wi-Fi. Now you've got real issues that integrators deal with every day. And it's one of the things that in my alliance work, we work on a lot to help the dealers integrate these solutions together, make it easier for them to truly plug and play. And that's something we've been using the word plug and play for decades. And I think we're just getting there now, right? It's almost there. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, it's cool to see that, your career has allowed you to kind of watch this industry grow up. So you have a unique perspective on it from those early days and what it was to kind of what it is now and where it continues to evolve. Is it obviously the technology has gotten better? Would you call it easy? I guess you said it, right? It's not really easier today as it is. Like, would you really do you prefer what it was before, or like where it's kind of going?
No, I absolutely prefer where it's going now. I mean, look, it's so we're what are we, about 3 or 4 minutes in, and I'm going to use the 2 letters, right? So you have AI, right? Because no podcast is complete these days
without talking about it,
without us talking about AI, and I'm not one of these guys that believe that AI is going to either swallow the world or solve the world's problems. It's a tool like any other tool, and that's and every time a revolutionary technology has come out over the last 30 years, I've had the exact same impression of it. It's a tool. It's a tool to be used to further other things and other opportunities. And so I look at the complexity that we've got today. There's a simplicity to the complexity we have today. And that means that there's a lot of people working behind the scenes, creating that simplicity to that complexity. And that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily understand. There's a whole sausage factory going on behind the scenes. When you have an app on your phone, there's hundreds and hundreds of potentially people, but certainly hours that have gone into all of the connective tissue. And a lot of times those people are not recognized for the contribution that they have made to all of these apps to make it easy for the dealer and make it easy for the homeowner to utilize. Way back in the day, a Crestron programmer was worth his weight in gold because that person knew exactly how to program. They knew how to code. They knew line level coding, and they had to literally go in and code to make things work. Yep. Nowadays, you don't necessarily need that skill. There are still people out there doing that, and there are still opportunities to do that. But for the most part, we've now graduated to higher level languages and higher level opportunities. And so now the dealers can focus more on the solution than the problem.
Is that the challenge right now? Is that the integrators so used to being involved in the creation of the sausage that they don't have to be, so they can pull themselves out and focus on a different area, and they don't know where to focus yet?
And they don't. And I can tell you that over the last 10 years, the integrators that have survived are the ones who recognize that change.
Yeah.
Right? There were plenty of Crestron dealers out there, good, strong businesses that didn't pivot when the whole software revolution happened, and unfortunately got left behind.
Right.
The same is happening in the security world. The advent of wireless, there are still security guys out there pulling wire every day. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but there are old school people that like doing it the way that they know it's going to work, rock solid every time. That's what they're used to, and that's what they're doing. But I think there's an evolution, and I say this all the time. It's not a revolution, it's an evolution. All right. There are moments of revolution, but what we're dealing with right now is the evolution of the smart home marketplace to finally fulfill the promises. I mean, man, we've been promising the Jetsons since the 80s, right? I mean, seriously, we've been promising the Jetsons. You walk in your house and it's going to know everything. It's going to wash your dishes for you, right? But we're finally at the point now where we understand how that evolution is occurring and how we can take advantage of it.
Right.
We all have talking boxes in our houses, right? No matter which brand you have. And those talking boxes are gaining more and more intelligence to be able to anticipate what's going to happen. No integrator has enough knowledge of the way someone lives in their life to be able to program a system effectively enough to anticipate every one of their homeowners' needs. We've always done reactive systems. I did them myself back in the day, right? It's 6 o'clock at night. Homeowners coming home. I'm going to make sure there's lights on. Going to make sure the music is playing based on their wants. But what happens if they get home at 6:30? Did the thermostat adjust? Did it burn for a half an hour before they got there because it didn't know that they were getting there a half an hour later? How does it anticipate? Those are the kinds of decisions that we're starting to play with now. And the integrators are going to really be able to take advantage of these solutions rather than dealing with the problems before.
Yeah. I think you said it a little bit ago in that the integrator that likes to still get in there and pull the wire, because they're comfortable with it, they know how to do it. It's like letting go of that control over the system, because they don't need to be that. It's almost like letting your kids go off to college, right? Watching them, letting them have that independence where they're going to go do it on their own now, and you got to trust them to be successful in life or whatever it is, right? In this instance, it's like you got to trust your consumer because they play a bigger role in this now, as opposed to what the system you're setting up for them. It's got to be it had to be designed for them. Now it's like they play as much of a role in it as what you're able to build for them.
But here's where we get into a really cool opportunity that not enough integrators are taking advantage of. So to your point, they have to let these systems run on their own, right? They have to let them fly. But the monthly maintenance, the monthly check-ins, the monthly opportunity to make sure that they are streamlined and doing what the consumer wants them to do is a revenue opportunity that not enough integrators are taking advantage of.
Yep.
And that's really, back in the day, we used to try to call ourselves digital gardeners or digital concierges or, any one of a number of sort of nom de guerres. Today is really the opportunity for those monthly recurring services to be able to generate revenue. And that's something that the modern integrator, right, can really take advantage of. And I don't think enough of them are doing it. We're still stuck in this. Is it a service contract? I mean,
Right.
that has all kinds of negative connotations. But if we're going to be those digital gardeners, if we're going to be the people who monitor these systems to make sure that they're actually working effectively, and by the way, that the data is protected,
Mhm.
that the firewalls are up, that the cyber trust marks are on all of the product, that the data privacy is in place. These are key issues that integrators can look at as opportunities. Whereas 5, 10 years ago, integrators, a software engineer on staff was an anomaly. Now it should be the norm.
Yeah. You're touching on a lot of things that I think leans into, one of the roles you mentioned at the top of this, and that's the Z-Wave Alliance. And I know you also just came off of the CSA event, not too long ago. Talk about there's still a lot of challenges for the consumer, right, in this space.
Oh,
And, it's the options that are out there. I don't want to blame one company, but you think about the Amazon effect, right? And like all the products that are available there, a consumer goes on and they can see, if they want a doorbell, there's 1,900 options as opposed to the 2 that might have existed a few years ago. So there's that confusion. Talk about, how the space has improved in that regard, or what's happening to make life easier, for the consumer as well as the integrator.
Yes, so I did. I was lucky enough to attend the CSA conference last week. That's our friends at the Zigbee Matter thread, right? And yeah, look, choice is a double-edged sword, right? Choice has always been a double-edged sword. There are great studies that were done in consumerism about how a consumer, if given 3 choices, will make no choice, but if given 2 choices, will choose. And so there's great stories like in the shoe industry where somebody will bring out 2 pairs of shoes, but if they want to see a third, they'll take away 1 pair of shoes from them and then bring out the second one because a consumer with 3 choices can't make its decision. So, and philosophically, right, that's got a lot of power to it. So yes, you can point to our friends in Amazon and say, ha ha ha, look, there's 1,200 different doorbell cameras. Or you can look at it and say, well, wait a second, there are now 1,200 opportunities of doorbell camera manufacturers to sell to the consumer, to differentiate themselves, to be in the marketplace. Yeah, there's no doubt that the consumer is still confused. There's no doubt that, there have been some promises made that maybe haven't come about yet, but we're building the systems as they're running down the track, right? It's very difficult to build a train while it's moving at 100 miles an hour. And that's exactly what we're doing as an industry right now. And so I tip my hat at my friends at CSA and what they've been able to accomplish and how they've been able to accomplish it. I don't envy them at all. The fact that they're trying to build an open platform standard with all of these egos in the room while the world is watching, right?
Yeah.
This is not a fun thing to do at all. But to their credit, they've at least managed to keep this coalition together. There was a lot of positive vibe at the conference last week. There was, or a couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of really great information, a lot of great partnerships that are coming out of it. And the Z-Wave Alliance, we're doing the same thing, right? We're partnering with lots of different companies. We've got lots of development. We assure backwards compatibility within our standard so that the consumer has a little bit of an easier time of it. But I think the integrators are not yet taking advantage of that confusion, right? To bring it back around to the integration world, this is your opportunity to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I understand that your problem is the kids leaving the garage door open. I have a solution for that problem, right? I understand your problem is the squirrels getting into the bird feeder. I have a solution to that problem, right? I understand that you have a problem with making sure that the doors are locked or making sure the lights are on or your home theater isn't tuned properly. There's lots of different things. And if you go at it with the idea of you're going to be the solution to the everyday inconveniences, the everyday energy management problems, the everyday security issues of the average homeowner, now you take a different tactic and you sell the systems differently because now you're no longer selling, oh, I got this amplifier and this set of speakers and that projector and this kind of door lock. You're selling a solution. You're selling a set of solutions. And a lot of integrators do this, right? I mean, I've been preaching this for a long time. But to your point, the average consumer does get on Amazon, does get completely confused. What we need to do as an industry is be the intervention there, right? We need to intervene. You've done the research on Amazon. You've Googled this, you've searched that, you've researched whatever. Now let's talk to somebody who can completely explain to you how all of this goes together. And then you don't have to worry about logos on boxes.
Right.
Now you only have to worry about, oh, it's $29 a month, and somebody comes in and fixes it all. Cool.
Right. So a question to follow up there, because I know, the integrator can clearly play a role in helping, address that confusion and simplify things for the consumer. We're not certain yet if or when. It's maybe this year. I don't know. But there's a big company out there in, Cupertino that has its plans to get more, solidify itself in the home space. And if you're not picking up what I'm dropping, it's Apple and their, their rumored Home OS that's supposed to be coming out at some point. There's a big portion of the country consumer base that is, there's the Apple versus Android, right? When Apple gets into this space and they, offer up this Home OS and their way of simplifying things, does that help or like throw more confusion towards the way things are?
So I guess it depends on their implementation, right? If you believe the rumors, it's going to be a very, AI intelligent, Apple intelligence, as they call it, centric system. I can only speak to rumors, so I'm not trying to give anything away here, but I've heard rumor of a doorbell camera. I've heard rumor of a 15-inch panel on the wall. Look, Apple does things in a very specific way. It's one of the reasons why they have so many fans is because you know what you're getting with Apple, and it's very, right? There you go. Exactly.
Cover my ears.
It's very strange that you have an Apple experience that is not an experience that you expect to have, right? It's fairly well defined. I've personally been waiting for Apple to enter this space in a serious way for, I don't know, 15 years, right? The MFI program back in the day, I can tell you that there were some really deep discussions with Apple quite a while ago about doing integration with third-party product. But Apple takes their time. They study the market. I do believe that any addition to the smart home market is a good addition, right? Anything that gets us to talk about it. I remember for many years, my friends, my family, really didn't understand what Avi did for a living, right? I would go to the average dinner party and they'd say, so what do you do for a living? And I'd say, oh, I'm an integrator. And they go, a what? Wait, you're a huh?
Right.
What is that? And then AT&T Digital Life came along and they did those television commercials with the old guy in the rocking chair outside the cabin, and his kid showed up and he's like, did you remember to turn off the lights? Did you remember to? And he gets on his app and he's like, click, 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 click. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Everything's done. All right. That television commercial revolutionized our industry. It was a turning point, an inflection point in our industry where we became part of the mainstream conversation at that point about what technology can do for our daily lives in our homes. Apple could be another inflection point, depending on their implementation, depending on how they go about it. I certainly would imagine they're hoping that they're an inflection point. But again, anything that gets media coverage, anything that gets people talking about smart home, in my opinion, is great, points. Because even the negative articles, when
Any coverage
TP
is
Link,
good coverage.
had their little troubles and things, then at least got everybody talking about cybersecurity, got everybody talking about privacy, got everybody talking about, what happens when a product end of lifes. These are important conversations for our industry. They're important conversations for our integrators.
Yep.
And these are important conversations to bring up with your prospective clients and your current clients.
Yep.
If you get in front of that conversation, then you become the expert and you become the person that they rely on when they read that article in the media. They call you instead of drawing their own conclusion, which sometimes can be positive and sometimes can be negative.
Right. Exactly. To your point, it's any discussion around it, on the product side of things is an opportunity for that integrator to get out there in the market and in front of their clients and, establish themselves as the thought leader in the space for them, so that they can help make sense of that confusion.
Yep.
And to the integrator side of things, back to them a little bit. What are we've talked a lot about product and the kind of bringing together, I guess, the industry and helping make sense of the confusion. Other challenges that they're facing, or any other things that they need to be aware of as they navigate this space?
Like AI has to be in every conversation. The other word that has to be in every conversation these days is the T word.
Yeah, I thought that's where
right?
you were going.
It's the T word, right?
Yep.
So first of all, let me start by saying that, and I'm going to hold up a little, see, okay. Tariffs are taxes, all right? Tariffs are taxes. Anybody who doesn't believe that a tariff is a tax, I'm sorry to break the news to you, but the American public pays the tariff, nobody else. So let's dispel that rumor right away. The second problem is your manufacturers are reaching the breaking point where they've been trying to absorb the tariffs over the last few years. And unfortunately, now the tariffs are going to be so much that it is going to be impossible for your manufacturer partners to absorb these tariffs. So what does that mean? It means the dealers are going to now see price increases. Mm-hmm. And those price increases, of course, are going to have to be passed to the consumer. It is what it is. The cost of living is going up in this country. There's no doubt about it. Inflation was a thing post-pandemic from the bullwhip effect, and that was a problem in the economy. We seem to have reduced the rate of inflation only in time for the T word to raise its ugly head again and throw things into a little bit of turmoil. However, it's important, again, that you be honest with your consumer and explain to them where this is coming. What I have seen very effectively used in a lot of places now are a line item in a proposal that says tariff. And quite simply, it is just the price that's being passed along by the manufacturer to the dealer, and thereby the dealer to the consumer. One of the ways that you can mitigate the effects of tariff is to help your consumer understand that you're not taking profit margin on the tariff.
Right.
So it takes a little bit of accounting, takes a little bit of nuance, but if you know that the product you're getting from X manufacturer has a 20% tariff on it, and you know that you're going to be charging that 20% tariff back to your consumer, putting a line item on your invoice that says, this is the cost of the tariff. We want you to be informed. An informed customer is better than an uninformed customer.
And you're being transparent too, on the other hand. You're showing them that this is not, I'm being very open with you about why this price is higher than you expect.
Exactly. It's also important to understand that the way that we go about the arguing against or for or with or whatever side of the political spectrum you're on is through public discourse, right? Public discourse is very important to have in a situation where there's controversy. Tariff is a controversial subject. There are plenty of people out there who believe that we need to tariff things coming into this country because of the economic inequalities. Whichever side of the spectrum you're on, I'm not here to judge either way. All I'm saying to you is transparency to your consumer will help them understand it. So if they have an issue with it, they're not taking it out on you. They're taking it out on the appropriate person or government or entity or whatever you want to call it. Right. And I think it's a way that we as an industry, and there are other industries doing this as well. I have a client that builds a high-end audio system, and it's in an extruded aluminum case. It's a gorgeous extruded aluminum case. Well, you might have heard there's a 25% tariff on aluminum right now. And so, the first thing they looked at was, well, should we make it a plastic case? You got to give up some things. So as manufacturers, there are choices being made and there are decisions being made. But at the end of the day, the dealer, the consumer, likes the product that they buy. And so if that's the case, then that's the way we're going to do it. Could you imagine if all of a sudden our friends at Apple decided to put, iPhones in plastic cases instead of aluminum cases? Probably wouldn't fly too far,
no,
right?
I don't think so.
Probably not going to be a thing. So
screens wouldn't crack as easily, right? Maybe.
I don't know, right? It's like, until they tariff glass, and then we'll have another problem. But who knows? But I think that transparency, like the cybersecurity issues, right?
Yeah.
Like the cyber trust mark, so all of these issues that we're dealing with as integrators, and these are business issues that we've never had to deal with before. Integrators tended to be technologists, and we only had to deal with technology, and it made much more sense in doing so. Unfortunately, these days, just like businessmen from around the world and around the industries, no matter what industry you're in, these business people have got to be upfront and transparent in their transactions. It's the same way the McDonald's is dealing with the price of eggs, and Waffle House, right, raised, I think it is a 50-cent, right, a rate on every egg that you get at Waffle House now, and they were honest with their customers. And look, it didn't stop people from going to Waffle House, but at least they understood what was going on. And I think it's very important for the integrators to realize that being that voice of reason, being that voice of expert, creates more stickiness and more trust with your customers. Because if you're not doing it, somebody else is.
I love that. And the awesome thing about that too is that there are organizations out there that you're a part of, and that many others are a part of, that are helping, to navigate these issues, but also out there, on behalf of the integrator, and the consumer, of course, at the end of the day, right? Making sure that, they have their best interests at heart.
Right. I mean, we're all consumers, right?
Yeah.
So, whether we're business people or we're end users, but, like I said before, I work with the CTA. But Daryl and his team at CEDIA are doing a great job of informing the dealers and helping them understand the tariffs and understand them how to navigate that. I know they've got their Day on the Hill coming up with the CEDIA folks. I've got the CTA's Day on the Hill coming up, or it should be, it's second week of April. So whenever this gets broadcast, but these are important. And this is the last little plug I'll give about this is, as an integrator, it's important for you to be involved. It's important for you to be involved in these organizations. When I was an integrator, I was a member of the Home Automation and Networking Association, right? We were HANA. And then we were actually acquired by CEA, which later became the CTA. But if your dealers really want to understand what's going on, it's not enough that you just attend these webinars. You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to speak to your local politicians. You got to speak to your state legislatures and your federal legislatures. They need to hear from us. We are a growing industry. What the CEDIA folks have done in labor force initiatives is highly important, right? The Department of Education is going through a transition right now. And so the programs that they've been championing in some of the trade schools and things are going to transition to some other departments within the government. Well, it's important to get them educated about the importance of trade school, the importance of labor force management, the importance of, who's doing the actual wire pulling and integration and things. And the way to voice that is to get involved, right? You have to get involved in your industry alliances in order, to give something back to the industry. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great message to close on, just to get out there, be involved, and, we've got the events you mentioned, and then a couple more events later this fall. And I know CEDIA also goes on the road with their Tech and Business Summit. So, just great ways to be out there, get, in front of the industry, or in front of these associations, and the work that's going on behalf of, the work that you're doing. So, Avi, great to catch up with you. I know this will first of many, I feel like, conversations. We got lots more that I know we wanted to dive into. But I think we'll be talking again.
I look forward to it. And Rob,
for sure.
Congratulations on the gig.
Thank you.
I think you're going to do really, really well. You got some big shoes to fill there, but I have nothing but confidence. And I really do appreciate you having me on. I look forward to our next conversation.
You bet. All right. Till then. If you enjoyed this episode of the Residential Tech Talks podcast, please subscribe to us on the platform you're listening on. Also, be sure to follow Residential Tech Today on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Residential Tech Talks, lighting specialist, residential tech.
This episode of the Residential Tech Talks podcast was brought to you by SVS. Let's get real for a minute. Sound is what connects us to the physical and emotional experience of our favorite music, movies, and shows. It's bass you can feel, breathtaking vocals, and sonic realism that transports you. If you're ready to get serious about your home audio, you need to check out SVS. Whether it's your endgame, home theater, or your first legit stereo, SVS has a solution and unrivaled support to help you every step of the way. Learn more at svsound.com.